Where have I been? I'm a shapeshifter at this masquerade, hiding both face and mind, or free for you to draw. I'm a shapeshifter, what a truth to be. Please don't take off my mask, revealing dark.
What's up, everybody? How's it going? Welcome to the main channel. This is Anime a la Blanc, episode 2. And today I do have with me a really special guest. We actually been planning to do this for some time, but we are actually finally get to do. What's up, everybody? How's it going? Welcome to the main channel. This is Anime a la Blanc, episode 2. And today I do have with me a really special guest. We actually been planning to do this for some time, but we are actually finally get to do this. Chen, thank you so much for coming by. How you doing today?
Thank you, man. I'm really excited about today's podcast. I'm doing pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. Right in front of me, I have an apple for my boy Ryuk.
What's up, everybody? How's it going? Welcome to the main channel. This is Anime a la Blanc, episode 2.
So you already know.
And today I do have with me a really special guest. We actually been planning to do this for some time, but we are actually finally get to do this. Chen, thank you so much for coming by. How you doing today?
Thank you, man. I'm really excited about today's podcast. I'm doing pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. Right in front of me, I have an apple for my boy Ryuk. I've got a bag of chips for my boy Light Yagami. I got a piece of chocolate for my boy Mello, and I'm drinking some green tea for my boy L. So you already know I'm super excited about this franchise. So
nice. Glad to hear. I am super excited. I have some candy here, so for of course L. So obviously, as we're fans of Death Note, and overall, like it's really funny to me because I saw Death Note a long time ago. Like it was during my high school years. It was like one of the animes that I first like watched and everything, and it was just a specific. It had something that a lot of anime I feel like don't really have. Like it's definitely a more mature anime in like a different sense, and not just in like the nudity sense or in like the blood sense. Because in this anime, although there is a lot of killing and there is a lot of like action and everything, there isn't really a lot of like blood and or anything like that. It's more really like about like specific situations that happen, and it's just not something that you see in a lot of anime. Typically, when you think of something like mature or something like that, you usually think of something like really bloody or like hentai or something like that. I don't know. And this one is just like it hits you in a completely different notes, and I feel like this is, and I mentioned this before we even started, but I do believe I put Death Note like a special place. It's like what I will call a masterpiece as far as like an anime and everything. I don't really use that term lightly. I really very hesitant to use it whenever I can. And in this case, I just freely feel free to use it because I really do feel like this is one of the best anime I've ever seen. But tell me about your experience about the anime. Like, when did you watch it the first time, or when did you hear about it?
Oh man, so I first watched this show. All right. Maybe like 2013, I think it was. I found this show on demand back when they had really good anime on demand. This is like the cable services and whatnot. And this was the first I don't know if I could say non-mainstream, but this was the first show that wasn't a shonen anime. It wasn't Yu-Gi-Oh, Naruto, Dragon Ball Z. And I had selectively found it myself. The first anime I decided to watch without my big brother showing me something or anything. I just clicked it and I was amazed. I didn't know what I was looking into because I don't read synopsises, summaries, or anything. But the minute I started watching it, like you said, it was something that no other anime had at the time. And, the premise of the story, and once you get to the end, like from front to back, it's an anime that provides a perspective that you probably won't ever get in another anime ever.
Right.
The characters were beautifully crafted. They all had, we'll get into it, but let me just say, at that time, at that age, I was completely blown away by this anime at the time. And it still stands today. It was the first anime I watched, and I still think that it's the one and only best anime in my top 10. And if you cross-reference our own experiences with the anime to what people say online, it's ranked as one of the highest anime for a good reason. And I can't wait till we deconstruct everything that makes it stand so high up on that podium of good anime.
Of course, yeah, definitely. And yeah, same here. It's like there's just so much about it that I really feel like it really works so well. And I feel like we're definitely gonna jump into kind of like all the different aspects that I feel like really work well with the anime and everything. Well, let's go ahead and just kind of talk about the story. So no spoilers here. We're just gonna give a brief introduction of the anime if you haven't seen it. Later on, we will talk about spoilers as we move forward with the talk. But for now, we are not gonna be talking about spoilers. So the story goes this way. Light Yagami is a student, high school student. I believe he's a senior, and he's just a genius, bored of life, and at the perfect time he finds the Death Note. Death Note is in the world, I guess, a notebook where somebody can write a name of a person and think of the face, and the person will die within 40 seconds, I believe. So that's kind of like the premise of it. As Light gets more used to using the Death Note, he realizes he wants to become a god. He wants to be the person to choose who lives, who dies based on justice. He has a really strong sense of justice, which I also feel like it's one of the an interesting premise with another character that he clashes a lot with. And as he goes through, he finds out he's not the only genius around in town. And I really love that dynamic as he meets L, who is going to be kind of like the antagonist, but not really the bad guy. Obviously, in this anime, Light is the bad guy, but he's also the protagonist. And obviously, we have L, who is the good guy, but is the antagonist. And it's a really interesting, obviously, chemistry between two characters, and it's kind of like a game of cat and mouse, kind of like what they do and everything. And that's pretty much it as far from there on. I don't really want to spoil too much at this point, but we're going to go ahead and jump into that. So Chen, who's your favorite character? We want to talk about that.
Okay. There was a part, maybe hopefully after I can get into. It's not really spoiler, but it had something to do with how they set up the beginning of the anime. So I wanted to give it a little bit of praise. Could I go into that, or do you want me to
you
hold that off for
can
later?
you can go into that. That's fine. That's fine.
Okay. So one of the things that make this anime stand out is how it invites you to the theme and the whole plot in the first couple of minutes. So he starts off in the classroom before the Death Note even drops to the human world. In his classrooms, I just watched this again after like 10 years, so I got to see this for the first time. And I was like, wait, why didn't I notice that before? So in his first class, the teacher, I think they're in reading or English class.
Right.
They're reading about something, and the story of the story that they're being learned that they have to recite is the story of the plot of the whole anime. Like in the sentences that they're reading, it's literally explaining what happens, what events are being preceded, and I find that absolutely like beautiful.
Oh wow, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I need to check. I need
I'm
to
not gonna say
rewatch all
what it
that.
was, but
Wow.
that I was like, there is no way they just did that, and so I give it all the praise in the world, which was awesome. My favorite character, whew,
Wow.
I'm gonna have to go. Well, damn, because the thing with these characters is that they all have their own, like, they all have their own ideology on what justice is, and some of them support one another indirectly. Like the characters get split, and they're not all
Definitely.
Like,
It's one of the interesting parts about this anime, because unlike other anime or other even things like Persona, we're huge Persona fans. We play the games and everything, but one of the things that I criticize a lot about Persona is they always have like these like, oh well, they are the good guys and the other people are the bad guys, but Death Note, there's no really clear like good or bad. It is always like a really gray area as far as like looking who is good and who is bad. Light, I mean, if looking at some perspective, the people that he's killing are really bad people. They're
Objectively,
I mean, like if you even in whatever direction you want to look at it, the people that he is killing are definitely people that either are getting away with it, or they really don't deserve like what's going on and everything. So from that perspective, you can see like he's enforcing some kind of justice that a lot of people in the show at least do support. Like the regular population do support the idea of this person that or this being that is killing all these bad people. You know, the way that they perceive it is that. But then on the other hand, you have L, who I don't necessarily feel like he is necessarily like a all good guy, because the way that he sees it as a game more than necessarily like stopping the person that is doing all these killings. He just wants to find this individual, and he has like his own like mentality about it and everything. But I love that it's not really as cut and dry as like, oh, this is bad, this is good. It's more like the dynamic between like all the different characters. And you can talk about Memlo and like
Right.
everybody else. Everybody has like a different perspective as far as like what's going on. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that that's why it's so beautiful about this, because it's not as simply as, oh, he's doing a bad thing, we need to catch this guy. But there is definitely a lot to be said as far as like the dynamic between what is truly like bad or evil versus what is objectively bad by law, which is like two
Mm-hmm.
completely different things here. Like the reason why Light is being looked for is because he's breaking laws, basically, but it's not necessarily because he's doing a bad thing, which is again like an interesting dynamic here, as L, who doesn't hesitate to even break laws in order to catch him as well. So it's kind of like this like weird dynamic between two characters here.
And if you don't mind, yeah, I wanted to, before you moved off the point that you made earlier about how each character is, has their own ideologies and their own thoughts based on Kira, whether he's justice or not justice. I wanted to mention that, once again, some of their own perspectives on Kira being good or bad aligns directly with either L or Light. So even though you have the task force working together at some points with L, so even some of those people, like Matsuda, for instance, they made it very clear that Matsuda didn't align directly with L's perception of Kira being evil, because Matsuda felt like he aligned more with Light Yagami's idea that bad people should die, and Matsuda noticed that at some point the world was getting better just by having bad people die, because less people are committing crimes. And
Right.
so Matsuda, he got outed very early in the anime for stating that Kira isn't exactly bad and that we shouldn't go against him. Now, jumping on another topic you just mentioned about how L seems hyper fascinated on solving the crime rather than actually catching Kira, that shows a lot in the anime, because there were many instances where he could have apprehended several Kiras at points in the anime where he just didn't, because he was more focused on finding out exactly every nook and cranny of Kira's killing,
Right. Right.
who Kira was. And so
Yeah.
he,
Yeah.
yeah, he postponed postponed the apprehension at so many points. Also, last point before you move forward was, you mentioned Persona and how, there were some things that you didn't like about the topics that they explored. Taking from that, looking at Shin Megami Tensei to make a determination on what characters you like, it really comes down to what reasons you support. And I thought
Right.
of Nocturne when I watched this anime over, because it felt the same way. Like, I only liked the character because I understood how they thought and I aligned
Right.
with their reality. So it comes down to, I mean, I like L as a character. I think I like all the characters, but it really
Mhm.
comes down to, what do I believe is justice?
Right, and I
So
feel like
that,
that's a really interesting like aspect to it. Like you bring Shin Megami Tensei, and it's a really good point. Like it's not really about like what is bad or good. It's just understanding like the characters' motivations behind like what they're doing and everything. Because every single character, and not just Light and L, like Masuda, like you mentioned, or even Light's father, for example. Everybody has like their own little sense of justice that you see, or like what their motivation are. For example, Misa doesn't really care about what's going on. She definitely has specific motivations attached to Light, but she doesn't really care about what's going on or what's good or bad or anything like that. It's more about finding Light and being with him more rather than all this other stuff and everything. I feel like that's also kind of like why I didn't like her so much. Like she was still a pretty good character, but she was definitely like a lot subpar compared to everybody else. She definitely broke the mood for me a few times, and I'm like, there's a lot of tension going on, and she kind of breaks off the tension with something silly or something. And I'm like, oh well, kind of break the tension there, but I
that's
guess you kind of
true.
have to do it as well. I guess you have to bounce off something. I guess.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, you gotta love her. Her and Matsuda kind of bounce off each other. Like, when Matsuda's not doing something stupid, you got Misa just being really happy and bringing the vibe up. And I like them too as characters. I think they
mhm.
added a lot. And even some scenes with Mogi, who was the acting as the driver and manager after Matsuda kind of screwed up at Yotsuba,
Right.
that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I do like that, and that's also one of the aspects that I really like about the way that the story is told, because the story is told in a really. There are some parts that are really fast paced. Like if you really look at it, within like 2 or 3 episodes, there is just so much stuff that happens, and there are some episodes that are much slower that kind of just like they're really methodical and kind of like breaking down to the past of it. But I really like how every time that there's like a lot of tension, the authors really just find a good way to kind of find a break. Even if it's something as funny as like when you mentioned the apple with Ryuk, which is kind of like the whole ongoing joke about did you know that the Shinigami likes red apples or whatever, opposed to like in this particular moment, what is kind of funny, and then the next thing you know, there's like a lot of tension going on. And I just really know like how like every time that there's like a good tension moment, the tension kind of gets broken down, and it's kind of like okay, kind of like bring it back before they go back into action. Because again, there are some episodes that are really heavy as far as like so slow and methodical, and I just
Right.
really love like how much they like thought is into like every episode, or like the way that they're broken down. One of my favorite episodes, and it's not like one of the like the more farther, but it's when the I don't think it's the FBI. What is it? It's like this other organization that sent a bunch of investigators to investigate everybody in the families of the police officers, and
MPA.
yeah, and then Light killed. I forgot the name of the guy who has a wife who was also in the
Oh,
force or whatever. You know what I'm talking
Ray
about?
Penber.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. He killed him, and then she kind of is now suspecting him. I'm following him, and all this all there's like all this tension between like, oh, is she gonna catch him now? What's gonna happen next? How is he gonna get away with it? And there's like all this, the way that even the way that he got Pimber's name and everything like that. Like kind of like pretending like he's like, he staged the whole thing where the robber comes in and has, and he's like scaring everybody that he's gonna shoot somebody or whatever, and then he kind of gets the name of the guy, and I was like, that's super genius. Like beyond just like kind of thinking about it, like the way that he just kind of wrote everything down, because he wrote everything on the death note, the way that it's supposed to happen, and then at the right moment he just goes and get the name for the guy and everything. I was like, all of this stuff is genius. Like I really love the way they work that out. And then again, when the wife shows up and everything happens, and I'm like, wow, every single situation that he gets into, even if he doesn't, I don't really care whether he survives or not. It was more like the experience of it, like how he gets away with it or how he doesn't get away with it. It's just like the whole situation. It always gets like really out of control, but somehow it's still in control. And I that's like, it's almost like a weird sense of adrenaline, if you will. Like it's like a little bit interesting, kind of like intriguing, like what's the next thing that's gonna happen from here. I just want to know, kind of thing. And then the resolution is like the wow, that was such a good way to do it or whatever. I don't know.
You see, the thing with me, I want to stay on that topic of the Ray Penber assassination, you could call it. The scene with the bus. So you praised that the way that Light handled a lot of these killings and getting the information from Ray Penber specifically. I look at that scene, and that was probably I criticized that scene to hell, because there's going to be many instances where I tell you exactly how Light could have gotten caught, and that was probably the third time that he fucked up royally. Now, you did say it is true that he wrote how Ray Penber would die on that bus. However, I played over that scene, and right while Ryuk, he dropped the paper, the killer came up and was like, "Oh, what the hell is this?" And then he gave it back, right?
Right.
And then when he got the paper, that's when Ryuk showed up. He saw Ryuk, obviously.
Right.
During that scene, Ryuk was physically talking to the
shooter,
guy,
yeah,
the
yeah.
hijacker, right? And the thing that bothered me about that scene was that Ryuk was telling the guy exactly who Light's name was. He was telling him the whole plot. Oh, Light Yagami sent you here, and he made you touch the paper, and he did all this so that you could do this, and the guy was frantic. So Light wrote in the note that he would get frantic seeing pretty much this weird phantom thing, and then he would scream and go run out the bus and get ran over by the car. The thing was, he didn't specify what the guy would say or do prior to leaving out of the car. He only specified that he would run out of being scared. Now, the issue with Ryuk telling the killer well, the
Light's
hostage
name
guy,
and everything.
Light's
Yeah.
name, the guy could have frantically been like, he's like, oh, Light Yagami is a smart kid. He brought you here to do this, that, and the third. And the guy could have easily screamed out of fear and said, who the hell is Light Yagami? I don't know. And Ray
Well,
Penber was right behind Light the whole
to
time.
to
So
be
had he
fair,
screamed
we
and said
don't
his
really
name,
know exactly what Light wrote. Like, you don't have specifics of like everything that he wrote. I don't know if that was in the
no, he
plan
said
or
it.
not.
He said the guy would jump. He would get on the bus. He would take hostage. He would drop the paper. But he said he wouldn't kill anybody. He would take the bus hostage, not kill anybody. He set up the touch and the death note. He said
Right.
he'll see a phantom. He'll get scared and he'll run out of the bus out of fear. Everything in between he didn't mention. But the thing was, if you're scared and you're frantic and you're basically under this kind of control, even I would be like, who the fuck is Light Yagami? You're telling me all these things. I'm seeing you for the first time. You're a giant monster. I would have screamed, who the hell is Light Yagami? And he would
Right.
have been caught right then and there.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's a lot of instances that are kind of like almost like I call them like moments of like luck, you know, like where he just got lucky, and I appreciate those moments as well because it kind of brings you down to the fact that this is fiction, you know, like every time like
Right.
sometimes this happens and you're kind of like, oh, you know, like he could have easily gotten caught, but like you mentioned earlier with L, there was so many instances where L could have caught him, like more, you know, like
definitely.
there's so many times where L was like 100% sure that, or like 95%. Well, there was like a weird number that he kept mentioning, like 95% or 97%, that he was sure that he was Kira the entire time, and he was like 100% sure. He was like, "You're Kira," and I know, and every time that he has a chance to go against him or any of the Kiras as the story progresses and everything, he's always kind of like, I need to know everything about it, you know, and I'm kind of like, well, this luck, or is this just like a plot mechanic, or is this just like a fault of like the actual person, you know, like the character? Is it a character fault, you know, if you may? And I don't know. I like that in that sense because although it does feel really lucky on like in this perspective, it's kind of like, oh, this the plot messed up kind of thing, or it's a plot hole in the story. At the same time, you kind of look at it kind of like, well, yeah, but it's also kind of like a personality trait of like the characters themselves.
What it's supposed to express is that Light Yagami just simply isn't as smart as L. Like all of these slip ups that could have been the end of him. Yes, it is attributed to luck, and that's what they're trying to show is that Light might take, he might take notoriety for everything
Right.
that he does, and he thinks it's him, but really he has a lot of luck on his side. He has God,
Oh yeah,
literally,
he had
Shinigami on his fucking side.
definitely a lot of luck. For example, you know, there was no guarantee that Rem, the other Shinigami, was gonna kill them both. She could have killed him. She'll say, "Fuck it." He's you know, like she could have wrote in the death note, Light confesses that he's Kira, and then he kills him. You know, you know, like there's like many other ways that he could have like played out, and I don't know, like predicting the heart and predicting what somebody's gonna do next is like so. For example, his plan that he did, where he was gonna forget that he was Kira, and he was just gonna work with the task force and everything.
Could have fell on his head.
That
dude.
could have fell in so many because he didn't even predict it right. He went really lucky for him. Like he was literally in the car with L when when they recovered that note. That was 100% a lucky shot. He could have been with his dad. He could have been with Masuda. He could have been with any other person. Like the fact that he was sitting right next to L when they got the death note, that was a lucky shot. That was 100% blind.
Let's focus on that scene, right? I think that was about episode 2021. He gets in a helicopter with L to catch my boy Higuchi. They're in the helicopter. He gets the notebook back. That one scene where he's going crazy because he's remembering everything, that could have gotten him caught. But then the scene right after that, the dude goes to his watch, gets the piece of the death note out, and starts to write on it. And you're telling me, first of all, that was 2 chances that he could have got caught. If it wasn't the first time, L is over there staring at him.
L is literally looking at him, right? Exactly. Like, did you think you're gonna do the whole chip scene again? Although the chips scene is fucking hilarious, so I'm gonna let that slip. There's no way that could have happened in any other way. But the that specific scene, I'm just kind of like, you gotta be shitting me. Like
You
L
know what
is
else?
literally right next to you.
You know what else, kiddo? You
Yeah.
know what else? During that same scene, he writes Higuchi's name. He's the last person to have touched the Death Note. Immediately after he touches the Death Note, Higuchi dies. So
Right.
in one scene, in 5 minutes, he made three slip ups. He's the last person to kill. He's the last person to touch the note, so he can kill with the notebook. They know that now. Two, he's standing there screaming. How are you screaming right after you touch the Death Note? Why are you screaming? You didn't
Yeah,
even
why
look
are you
at Rem
screaming?
yet.
Right.
He didn't look to the left yet. He was standing. He was looking straight forward. So if he's looking straight forward and you know he didn't see the Shinigami yet, why is he screaming?
Right.
Like it's all of these things that I can't criticize a 2007-ish anime, but really it comes down to just highlighting that this man is getting extremely his whole streak has been luck.
Yeah, well, not his whole streak. He's definitely smart, and he definitely like has like a good plans and everything. But then like a lot of the times, like the farther the anime gets to the end, the more you see him slip up. And I don't necessarily think that that's a mistake as much as it is kind of like showing like his mentality kind of like
He's getting a little
deteriorating.
overconfident.
Yeah, he's getting like cocky, overconfident, and he's starting to sleep up more. He's starting to sleep up to the point that, let's be honest, if he was a light from the beginning of the show, he would have not gotten caught by M. Because the way that everything worked is like it's so stupid. Like at the end I was just kind of like, if it was the beginning of the show, it would have not gotten up until this far. But he starts sleeping up more often. There's so many chances that where he just sleeps out so much. In fact, whenever they get out, they get their memories back, and he immediately tells Misa to start writing on the note. I was like,
Yeah, and then a bunch of dudes just start dying at the same exact time. Misa comes out acting a little more happy and go lucky, like something happened to her while she was going.
Right.
And then people just start dying while she's going. Like it's so many variables to this. And I want to stay on that point that you made about early Light Yagami and how he was way more keen on the details. Early Light Yagami was the same guy that booby trapped his own desk so that nobody could touch his Death Note. Like he was ready to blow up his whole crib, start a fire,
Right.
burn down the house, just so nobody touched that book. The Kira of late Death Note was like, I know how to do everything. You do this, you do
Yeah.
that. It's gonna work flawlessly. The early Light Yagami didn't give a fuck. He's taking precautions until there's no more left.
Right, yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can definitely see that he started to get like more, I guess, like what you can call the God complex, what he's going through
Definitely.
or whatever. He's definitely just kind of like mentality, like, oh, I'm not gonna get caught. You know, I can't get caught. You know, I'm too good for me to get caught and everything. And every single time, like, I'm like, man, he's getting so lucky. Like every single time. Sure, the plan might have worked out somehow, but there was so many slip ups in between the working out that you're kind of like, and again, the further you go into the series, the more slip ups start happening and everything, and you kind of start seeing like kind of like, oh man, he's going crazy. By the end of the show, you're like he lost it completely.
Yeah, the beautiful thing about the show, I think what it represents the most, and we don't often notice it, but they paint the picture that Light is the man who's losing to insanity, right? The God complex came shortly after he got the Death Note. In the beginning, he just represented the public eye. Everything that
Right.
we feel and think, but we're too afraid to say it to be shunned and casted out of society. He represented that. But after he got the Death Note, he realized that him being in the position that he is, you know, he's smart, he has a family, his dad's in the MPA, he's the chief of the MPA, all of these variables work to his advantage. And once he realized he could be that voice for people, he started to go crazy. And we started to think, oh, Light is the crazy man of the show. However, just like you said, even L, he has a hyperfixation on solving crimes. And throughout the whole show, it shows that he feels the same way Light does, but about a whole different thing. Light is hyperfixated on killing and being justice. L is more fixated on never failing at solving a crime. So every time he felt like he lost the trail, he would get depressed, he would get sad, and he would express that because there's no way L is gonna fail at solving a case. Like just like there's no way that Light is ever gonna get caught. So they were both kind of insane in their own respects. L was just wanted to fucking solve the case no matter what, and Light just wanted to kill
definitely.
no matter what.
And you can see that L is also starting to get more desperate as the
Hmm.
story progresses. He's willing to show his face at some points. He because L at the beginning of the show would have never shown himself to Light, especially with how close they are to like finding the name and everything like that. I was like the whole thing about LA showing to his school and everything. I thought it was like kind of weird because they set him up in like a really mysterious kind of way, kind of like this person that never show his face and everything, and he just randomly shows to his school and starts like going to classes and everything. I was like. That's just kind of like seems like out of like the norm and everything, and then more you see him, he's also like he's at the he gets to the point that he's willing to use the Death Note to catch Kira to kind of like make sure that he works the way he's supposed to work or whatever. Which I thought it was kind of like almost like even the show people start criticizing him about it, like yeah you shouldn't do that. And it's like oh no it's fine we'll just get somebody that's gonna die. I was like well that doesn't really make you any better than Kira at this point.
Exactly. Exactly that. And I'll tell you what, I'll go back to the point that you made about how Elle showed up at school. I think that scene was. Wait, did my computer just die? All right, it went to sleep. I think that scene was on par with the potato chip scene, and I'll tell you why.
Hmm.
Elle showing up at Light School right after he graduating his university ceremony. Elle
Right.
shows up. Well, the scene before that, they literally show Light chilling in his crib with his family, eating dinner and watching TV. And on TV, they show Hideki Ryuga, which was he was like a pop star or a singer or something. And he was at some point, I think he was in a scene with Misa as well. But that's like
Right.
a
Right.
couple
Right.
episodes in. But that
Yeah, I know
first
what you're talking
scene
about.
where
Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, and then immediately the next day, Elle shows up to school with the name Hideki Ryuga, and everyone's confused. And I think that scene was meant to represent the way that Light feels when he met him, because everyone's like, "Oh, Hideki Ryuga, who's that? Isn't that the name of the pop star?" And it seems like a name, like you know who that is, but who is this weird ass guy that just showed up out of nowhere? So
Right.
Light
Yeah.
feels the same way everyone feels. So Elle popping up at school was to throw Light off his game
Oh, and
and put him in
he
the same
did
space as
big
everyone
time.
around him.
It did
Hmm?
big time, but I mean like the second time whenever after they go to school and everything, and
Like when
he
they started playing
lets
tennis and stuff.
yeah they play tennis, which is awkward as hell. But whatever, I'll roll with it. But then
Yeah.
he invites him to the task force and all that. I'm like, if he's your main suspect, why the fuck are you gonna get him into the task force? That I never understood. That whole section, I'm like, he's still suspecting him with all the stuff that happens and everything, and he's still like adamant as like getting him. I don't necessarily feel like he wanted to get rid of Kira. I feel like he more like wanted to befriend him in like a weird sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think he
Um,
does kind of suspect that as well with Light. They do share this kind of weird friendship and being enemies, like the frenemies, I guess if you want to call it that.
I think what it was, the whole point of Elle getting Light to join the task force was due to several variables, like Light being extremely smart, head of his classes,
Right.
genius,
Yeah.
right? They showed that in the beginning, and that's why he's using Light Yagami's intellect. Two, his father being the chief of the MPA is an immediate, like he's assuming based on the fact that his father is the head of the MPA and is the head of the Kira investigation. He's thinking that his son is in alignment with his dad's, you know, goal to apprehend Kira. So
Right. Right.
using those two variables, and then him being the suspect after killing Ray Penber and putting the public eye on him, well, the investigation's eye on him, it's like it's the perfect reason to bring him to the task force because
Keep an eye on him.
he's in a corner. If he says I'm not going to join, that's one going against what his father's fighting for, even though he doesn't know that his dad's doing the Kira investigation or he's not supposed to know. But that would show that he's against, like it'll split their ideologies apart. So it kind of forces him in not only to use his intellect to help Elle, but also to align with his father, so that they kind of can't. He's not at a crossroads, and because if it basically forces him to act like he's on the same side as Elle. That's what I'm saying. And to
Right.
test his genius, test his game, and all that, and that's exactly what happened. Is that he had to, when he actually relinquished ownership of the Death Note, you see just how smart he was and just how.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. And you can see like once he comes back, you can see like how sharp his mind is. Like he's literally like right up to with L. I actually enjoyed that quite a bit. At that point, with the first time that I watched it, I was almost hoping he wasn't gonna get the Death Note back until maybe like the very end or something like that. and just kind of how like that relationship with them, because I really like the way that they play off of each other when he's not in the Death Note and everything, that they're just so focused on like catching Kira and like everything, and they have like these crazy ass plans that they come up together and everything. And I was like, yeah, he is a definitely really smart guy, and you can see like without being distracted about like all this the Death Note and everything, there's definitely like a lot of pretty good stuff. I actually quite enjoyed that part of the story a lot. Like all the times that I've seen it, I'm like, yeah, I enjoy this particular part of it here. It's a good it's a good time, I think.
Right. Yeah, yeah. There was a point I wanted to make from the first guy that happened to die in this anime, he went by the name Kyoto, so I just had to say, I feel unfortunate for you, man. You have to take your name. First, and it's funny, that first scene made me laugh because, like I said, not only did they show exactly what the anime was about in the first classes that he took in high school, but also when the first guy died, he popped up on TV and the announcer, it was talking about the guy who got caught or whatever. He said his name was such a weird pronunciation, and he emphasized the name. What I liked about that scene was that they made sure that you knew that the names were extremely important. Like he went Kyoto, like he said that with some anger and passion. If you play that scene over, I swear to God, you'll laugh just because
Right, yeah.
it's the first person that dies, but also it just shows you just how important names are. And then the Shinigami Eye thing happens, and then names are the most important thing in the world. But I just love a lot of the things that the anime does in the beginning. It tells you everything without telling you everything that's important.
Right, yeah. It definitely like a really good as visual storytelling. Like there's a lot of cues to things that happen and everything like that, that kind of like show you where things are. It's not just about like listening to the anime and everything. You're obviously like experiencing watching it and everything, and there's like a lot of visual cues. There's a lot of like small little things that kind of give you clues. I really like whenever they show like close-ups of the Death Note with the rules and everything like that, and in between the breaks there is like the rules, like every time that they're talking about something in particular, like a rule he's gonna use, the show always kind of shows you the rules, like between the breaks and everything. So it's not like, oh, the show is just making shit up as it goes. It may, but the fact that they give you the rules and everything, it's easier for you to play along with it, opposed to like if the show just kind of like randomly just starts pulling rules out of his ass, and you're like, all right, well the note says so, so it does. So having those cues that are like those breaks where it just shows you the Death Note rules and stuff, is like almost like in a subconscious level, it gets people thinking, okay, this is possible because it's in the rules, and I really do like that aspect of the story a lot, because there's rules. There's a lot of crazy shit that happens, but there's like this scene, for example, with Light starts like messing around with the rules and kind of like seeing what's possible and what's not. Like the Death Note, it doesn't just make things like happen, which is funny because as we're talking about how he sleeps up and like the lucky he gets sometimes, but at the same time there's like a lot of grounded rules as far as like what is possible within the rules of like reality. I'm using you can't see, but I'm using quotation marks and like there's certain aspects where you can see like, oh, it's impossible for this person to just randomly teleport to France and then kill a bunch of people, like, so like things that
you can't go to locations that are you can't die at a certain location if you can't make it there in time for you to die,
right? Or like he can't just make up things that they don't know about, like they can't just make up L's name, or something like that. And I really like the idea of just having like all those rules pop up every once in a while, because it keeps people kind of on their toes. It's like, oh, okay, there are certain aspects that need to be followed as far as, and from the beginning all the way up until the end, the rules like play a massive role into the story, which I feel like it does make you feel like it's not just as simple as just like writing a name and that's it. There's like way more other stuff that play out into it.
Right. So I want to stay on the topic of the rules. Hopefully we can get really extensive with it.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yes, I fucking love the fact that they added the rules in between breaks. So I was noting them, a couple of them, and it answered questions that I actually had for some of the one shots, which we can go over like later on.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Some of the rules, bro, some of them are wonky and weird, right? Some of the numbers are like 563 days or 770 something minutes. Like they're weird, but some rules also, it shows that Light could have done way worse if some of these rules didn't exist. Like for instance, one of the main rules is that the person's death that you know cannot affect the death of any other person but the person you're trying to kill. So you can't have someone go massacre a fucking church before they die. You can't have one person kill another person. Like you can't end the life of someone else other than the person intended, which shows that if Light had that ability, bro, things would have went way worse. So it's not really a testament of how crazy Light really is, because yes, there were some limitations. Also, rules like the Death Note owner cannot, like, there's rules even for Shinigami. Like a Shinigami can't give the Death Note that he owns to another human, or the human can't write in the Shinigami's Death Note. Well, he won't understand it, but still, like, there's some rules that you just can't fucking break, and the Shinigami have to abide by them. Humans have to abide by them, and I think it's really awesome, dude. It sets up a good opportunity
and
for
it even
future,
addresses
future
like some
one-shots.
stuff that people will like will say like, well, that's a loophole. For example, I actually own a Death Note. So
Yeah, that's sick.
Rule 31, which is one of the things that I was like, how the fuck does he not run out of pages? Rule 31 says that the number of pages in a Death Note will never run out. Like, that's literally like...
What the fuck?
Yeah, like, you know, because I
That's
was
insane.
thinking, I'm like, he keeps ripping pages off the Death Note. Is he not, like, gonna run out, like, with the amount of names and everything that he writes? But no, like, even stuff like that makes it, like, so much more believable as far as, like, things like that, because he makes the show almost like if the Death Note was real, then everything was real, then all the killings, like what happens and everything, brings like a really interesting point as far as like it's believable within the world, and it doesn't just feel fantastical, opposed to Light messing up and then he just luckily getting away with it. The Death Note itself and like the rules just kind of make a good kind of balance to it, I guess. Because like you said, like he could do some really crazy shit with it if he could just get away with anything. You know, there's a lot of stuff that you're like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, definitely.
I'm gonna highlight another one, because this one had to do directly with the one shot, but also there's a scene in the about like when he meets him in like 5 days after he starts killing, he meets Ryuk for the first time. So they set it up that Light kills before he even knows the rules of the Death Note, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of foul, because the dude, he sealed his fate the minute he wrote the first name.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so he didn't really have a way to decide. So when Ryuk met him, he told him, "Hey, this is what's going on. Like, you're never going to heaven or hell." Blah blah. I looked at the Death Note rules and like episodes down, and one of the rules was that a Shinigami does not have to specify how the Death Note works at all. And I was like, wow, that's kind of fucked up, because in the future one shot, the same thing happened where Ryuk didn't tell the kid that he was gonna fucking die. And I was vexed by that. But now I watch the original show and I find out he didn't have to anyway. So, you know, it is
Right.
what it is.
Yeah.
But I just think it's crazy. It's fucked up.
Speaking of what you just mentioned, there is there's two one shots. There's one that you read, which is a sequel to Death Note, to the manga. But there's also
The
another
Sekido one?
What was that? Yeah, the one with
Sekido
Trump,
one?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's another one shot where there's this kid who finds the Death Note and he kills one of, I think, his friend or something like that, and he goes like crazy because, you know, he kills somebody and he doesn't want to use it or everything like that. It's a complete opposite from like Light and everything, and he like
Wow.
begs Ryuk, and apparently there is in canon a eraser that erases the name of a person in the Death Note and brings them back to life.
That's fucking dope.
And
I mean, I've seen people make spoofs of a life note, but I didn't know it was a real thing.
yeah, but it's not a life note. It's just the person that you killed them, it will bring them back to life. And therefore, if you didn't write anything on the Death Note, then the rule about going to hell or going to hell or heaven doesn't apply anymore, or something like that. It's a manga. It's the one shot that happens. I think this is a prequel. It happens right before Light picks up the Death Note.
That's interesting. Well, it offers a new perspective. See, all these things together they tell a really good story. Like I could already find a space for another Kyotos to emerge and abide by other rules within. You know, it's cool. It's cool stuff, man.
Right, and I actually kind of like that in the show. Light at some point takes advantage of the rules and he like writes a fake one too.
which I didn't even know was possible.
Yeah, he just wrote one, and I don't know. I think at some point, even Ryuk says that he doesn't actually know all of the rules. So there may be other rules applied to the Death Note that are not in the Death Note itself.
Yeah.
So it's again it's an interesting thing, and he also opens to the possibility of like maybe another show later on with different rules or with bigger rules or something like that. I don't know, but it's also always like kind of like those little soft stuff that they say every once in a while. You're like, okay, that really just kind of opens up to like more possibilities and everything, which is I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about in the rules? Or we're
Oh, of
still in
course.
the yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't want to make this section too long, but let's do it anyway.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
So when Rem becomes a part of, I guess, the whole task force, basically, after he touches the note in the helicopter, they go back to the headquarters, and Rem is just chilling with them now. L starts asking Rem questions based on the rules when they found out about that. Oh, you must write rules for 30 days or you die, or 13 days. I don't remember what it was. And he's asking Rem, and Rem is like, oh, all the rules are real. And then later on in the episode, he's asking questions like, "Oh, so this rule right here, it does a god?" No, he's talking about the note that Light left. He's like, "Oh, do gods of death like red apples?" And Rem is like, "Oh no, we don't really have a system for that because our organs have decayed." So that's when I realized that. So the Shinigami can pretty much tell L everything if she wanted to.
Yeah, but she doesn't have to.
So there's no rule. So there's a rule applied that you can't help someone by killing the person that's trying to end their life, but you pretty much can get them caught. So when Rem is like, "Oh, I'll kill you if Misa gets caught," one of the things I realized that indirectly there's a loophole where Rem could just give Light up the whole time and tell L everything, and Light will still be killed either way. So if Rem wanted to, she could bend that rule and just have him get caught and get the death penalty. Because Light said at that time, even in 2007, it's either the death penalty or life in prison.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I just found that pretty cool, is that there are loopholes even for Shinigami to kill people.
Oh yeah, definitely, and I think it's an interesting aspect too, because there's like so many ways. Like the more I like think about it, I'm like, man, there's like so many other ways that he could have done things. But like that's a wonderful thing about like the Shinigami that we know, because neither Rem or Ryuk really like follow Light. Like sure, like they give him advice or like, but Ryuk is just there for the shits and gigs. Like he's there just to have a blast. He doesn't care whether Light dies. He doesn't care what anybody's doing. He's just having a blast, just seeing it all like he's. I feel like in a sense, Ryuk is kind of like the spectator. Like it's us, really, in a sense. Like we're just
he's us. Definitely.
He's just like, if you want to watch the show in this perspective, we're like this Shinigami just watching everything happen from like a third person perspective. And at no point does he really play like a big role, if anything. If anything, he's just there for just like the entertainment. Like he says though at the beginning of the show, and at the very end of the show, he was like, "Well, it's been fun. See you later."
Time,
like,
goodbye.
Yeah, I was like that. That was kind of like, to me, was like the wow. Like from beginning to end, he never really grew like an attachment or anything. He had fun, and that's really why. It's also another limitation to Light, because if he had somebody like Rem, he could have done like so many other stuff. He could have probably thought of some really crazy ways to do a loophole or anything. And
Are you saying Light could have had an advantage if he had a Rem?
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
Okay, so I want to challenge that point. Rem and Ryuk represent two different sides of people. As Shinigami, they're basically explained that they don't have real emotions and that their job has nothing to do with the human world. It's all about the death note.
Yeah.
So they pretty much are like the stands of whoever they have to attach to. The thing with that is Ryuk comes down as this guy who just cares about having fun, because they showed what's up in the Shinigami realm, and there's nothing, just cards and like these sandy ass apples, really nothing, and they're dying by the day, so there's really nothing to do up there. Ryuk comes down, and his whole thing is to have fun. Where he likes the what Light is doing because it's entertaining, it's cool, even though he's killing fucking people by the hour. Rem is the complete opposite, where she despises the way humans work, and she's more hearted in somehow, some way. even as a Shinigami, she has attachment and she has feelings. Now, this one scene stung me when she attached to Misa and she told Misa like, I like it was weird how she even worded it. She said, I have feelings for you," like something like I'm attracted, something like that along the lines of I feel really strongly for you. So Ryuk is there for his entertainment, and he's like, "Oh, I love the fact that you're killing people because it's cool." Rem is like, "I hate the fact that you're killing people." So I'd argue that if Rem came down, even Jealous wasn't a fan of people killing. Jealous was Misa's former Shinigami, and even he obviously he didn't fuck with killing because he died for her because she was about to be killed. So
Right.
it really just shows that other Shinigami uh, wouldn't have been on L's side. Rem would not have been on light side at all. I said L, I meant
Oh no,
light
no,
because
no,
she's just
but
not a fan of.
he's
She's more the
still
pacifist.
used. But I mean, like he could have had things done differently. Um, for
Most
example,
certainly, yeah.
the way that he used Rem a lot, but he could never really use Ryuk in the same way. For example, when he went out of think like his memories, I guess when he lost his memories of being
Right.
Kira, and he transferred
Hmm.
the Death Note. He had specific instructions to Ram as far as like who to find and what to do, because
Right.
the only reason why it even worked out at all is because he had Ram to kind of do that. So that's what I'm saying. Like if he had two Rams in this example or something like that, the possibilities of him just kind of doing more stuff would have worked out better, because Ryuk just disappeared. He just went to fuck around. He really didn't have anything going on. His Death Note was in wasn't the other Death Note like on underground or something like that.
Yeah,
Light,
he had it
yeah,
buried.
yeah. He Light just like dug a hole and dumped it there. So like Ryuk didn't really do anything. But like if he had two Rams, like in this hypothetical situation, there's like all this other crazy stuff he probably would have come up with to kind of like, like maybe have another Kira while the other Kira is doing stuff. Like there's like all these other possibilities. That's what I'm talking about. I'm not saying like if they switch Kira and I'm sorry. I'm not saying that if they switched Ryuk and Rem. I mean, like if there were two Rems or like two people that are attached to Kira. Does that make
For a
sense?
fact, I'm thinking a little more about that fact. The thing with Ryuk also is that he was easily um gullible. Like if you gave him apples, I think he'd do anything. And in the beginning of the show, he told like, "Oh, I'm not on your side and I'm not against you. I'm just here for the good time."
Hmm.
But even like later on, he starts giving him apples for pretty much anything he needs them to do, and he might and go find
Yeah,
cameras
well
and
there,
he'll go just chill around. And so
but
he
there are
did help him.
certain
I think
things that he
he's
doesn't
easier to
really.
manipulate than Rem.
Right. Oh no, I wouldn't say he's easier to manipulate than Ren, because Ryuk is pretty much like, yeah, I'm not telling you their name, or like, yeah, I'm not helping you find the other Kira. Like I can tell you if I want to, but I'm not going to. Like he's straight up like
It'd
never.
be a rule saying you can't even tell the human someone's name.
No, not that.
I think that's why you need to do the deal is that Shinigami can't tell you the name of anybody they see.
Oh no, no, not the name. I'm talking about whenever there's like another Shinigami or something like that. There's no rules
Oh yeah,
against telling them.
he
And he
chose
was
not to
like,
tell
"I'm
them.
not
Yeah,
telling
that's
you
true.
if I see another Shinigami or anything." That's what I'm talking about. Like
Hmm.
whenever Misa sees him and he doesn't know what's going on, he's just walking there. Which I thought that was also one of the big slip ups for me, like in story wise. Like it was like
Agreed.
so dumb. Like you're already kind of like they are looking at you, and then like it only worked because of the situation that it happened. Like it's so situational and so lucky that Mista happened to see him at a specific time, and then he knows the other person. I guess I guess Ryuk didn't know that the Shinigami eyes can see the Shinigami.
Say that again. You said he didn't know that the Shinigami eyes could see him.
Yeah, or how did that work out? How did it work out that
Um,
she knew?
9 times out of 10, just Rem being Misa's pal and all, she probably just told her, "Hey, that's the kid right there."
No, no, no.
Because she
There's
had the eyes, so
something.
she knew
There's
who Light
something.
was. But Rem
There's
was like,
something
"Oh,
that
there's a Shinigami right there too,"
uh huh.
probably.
I don't know.
Because she didn't meet Ryuko until she touched
Oh
Light's
yeah,
Death
you're
Note.
right. You're right. You're right. How did he got it? Oh, the numbers, right? The numbers of the.
Yeah,
Was that what was that it? Yeah.
yeah. Wait. So what's the question so that I know what you're talking about?
How did she know Kira that he was Kira?
Oh yeah, because you can't see his lifespan.
Right. That's what it is. Okay. It's like, which is also something that is really funny because, uh, I guess Ryuk told him earlier on that, oh, I'm not gonna tell you your lifespan, or whatever. You know, like whenever they
Yeah,
talking about it and everything. So I think he just assumed that everybody else can see it.
I
But I feel
see.
like the only reason why Ryuk can see his lifespan is because they're attached to it by the Death Note. Whoever uh, whoever he kills, Ryuk gets the lifespan of it.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
why. I think that's why he can see the lifespan, but I don't think Ram can see his lifespan because she's not attached to him by Death Note.
Yeah. No, I agree. I definitely think that's the case. Can we stay on the topic of lifespans? I wanted to go on that a little bit.
Oh,
I think I
definitely,
like how
yeah.
we're flowing
Oh
through
yeah,
this conversation. Okay, so
definitely, yeah.
lifespans. What captivated me the whole time was thinking about doing the math for Misa's lifespan. If things didn't end up the way it did, Jealous, right? Jealous died for her, gave him half of her, the other half of his lifespan. So her normal lifespan got extended by a half, correct? And then
Yeah.
yeah, so she got Jealous, the other Shinigami's lifespan, in exchange for his life. She got another half. Then she got the eyes for the first time from Rem. Her life got halved again, so she's back at the normal lifespan. And then you got Rem. They gave her the other half. Wait. Let me make sure I'm getting this right. She had two halves. She got one from Jealous, and she had that halved. And then she got another half, I think, from Rem, or maybe
No.
that's flipped. But then that half got halved again because she did the ideal twice. So basically, the question was, how long of a life would she have had if she was alive today? Like that would be like I'm just amazed about how many times she had life
All
added
right.
to her.
Oh well, the second when Rem died, at that point, the owner of the Death Note wasn't Misa anymore. It
Oh
was
shit!
the it was the
It was light.
L. It was L.
Oh, I guess that. Yeah, I guess. What the fuck? So you're saying? Wait. Oh, wait. But no. But based on the rules, she would have still gotten the thingy because she died for Misa. So if you die for someone in particular, they die and they get the remaining lifespan. Let me make sure. I want to cross-reference that because so you're saying that L got an increased lifespan and he doesn't even know it.
No, because he died right away.
I get. Yeah, that's true. That's
Yeah,
God damn.
she killed him as soon as that happened. Like that's part of the
Yeah.
thing.
So
And
I guess he got life after he died. That's how
Yeah.
that went.
Well,
It fucking sucks.
that brings the he was the owner, but he didn't write a name, right?
Right.
So he still go to heaven or hell, or do you have to own it, or do you have to actually?
You
do
have to
something?
kill
You have to
for that
kill.
to
Okay,
apply.
okay, all right, okay. Just making sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
Okay,
rules
let me
are
see
really
this.
interesting. It's an interesting concept how they do it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Speaking of when L got the notebook, this might segue, so be prepared for that. They were in a helicopter. He passed the notebook to Light. Light got his memories. After that, he mentioned that how the notebook works because the other one's in the ground and that's Misa's notebook that he has.
Right.
He can only retain memories of the Death Note while he's in direct possession of the note. Like if he's touching it, he has the memories. The minute he gives up the notebook, that's exactly what they said. As soon as I let go of this, my memories will be erased. So I have to stay as close to this as possible. What confused me was right after he said that, he obviously gave the notebook back to L, which, if you're going based off what he said, verbatim, he would have forgotten everything about the Death Note.
Oh,
So
okay.
his whole
Yeah, I see a
was to try to-
confusion here. The piece of paper that he has with him give allow him to keep his
Holy fuck.
memories. Yeah.
Holy fuck, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Holy shit.
Yeah, remember the piece of the Dead Note represents the
watch
whole
note.
Dead Note. The watch note.
Yeah.
By the way, that's one of the
true.
most genius things that they added in the show that is barely utilized. That I was like, whenever had it the first time, I was like, oh man, that is so fucking genius. Like, it's a regular watch, but just in case I need to kill somebody while I'm in the party or something, I guess.
Yeah,
It's
this
just-
man,
it's just so-
he was playing a little too dangerous. Right next to L, you gonna kill right next to L, my guy.
But yeah, that's how that played out. I like how, like, although there are what you would call like some like plot holes here and there. I feel like a lot of the things can like be explained within like the rules and everything, but at the same time, like there's some aspects that I'm kind of like, yeah, he got lucky. There's a lot of aspects that you can definitely see how lucky he got.
Right. Yeah. Now that's hilarious. I'm not even gonna lie.
Oh, definitely. You said you have a segue into something else.
I think that was the segue. Give me a second. I'm looking over my notes. Yeah, I'd probably be moving on to something a little farther in the show, so
All
I
right.
want to be careful.
So I think from here on we are gonna discuss more heavy spoilers. So if you haven't seen Death Note, you will be more. I know we talked like story wise and everything, but this is also like the turning point of the show. So if you haven't seen it from then on, you might wanna click away. So obviously, the big thing, L dies, and I think that was one of the biggest kind of like my girlfriend's like sad face for her. That was her favorite character. But to me that was honestly the first time that I watched the show. I assumed the show ended on that episode when he just kind of like haha I have won kind of thing. I was like, oh okay,
Wow.
that's the end of the show. You know, like I thought that was the end of it and
That would
everything.
have been disgusting. I would not have been satisfied with that.
Yeah, it would have been extremely unsatisfying. But the first time that I saw it, for some reason, I just assumed that was it. Like I was like, oh, okay, you know, he won at the end. That was
I
anticlimactic,
think
I
it would have been
guess.
satisfying because even in and of itself, no anime to this date has ever had a protagonist die. So I think that would have been the stinger right there. It would have stuck with a lot of people anyway. It stuck with me. So yes, I was dissatisfied, but just having an anime where the main character dies was whoa, like holy shit.
Oh yeah, and that's one of the things that I kind of like. Also, what I wanted to do like the bigger spoiler at the end here, because like when you look at it, like um, how much of this plan that kind of at the end of the day got Light kill, or how much of it was just simply like Ryuk being like, okay, we had a good run, it was fun while it lasted, we're just gonna end it here for you, kind of thing. Like he was just like probably getting a little bored with what was going on. I don't know. Like you can say whatever, but I don't know if he could have necessarily survived what happened. But at the end of the day, it was more like Ryuk kind of just being like, all right, I think we're good here.
If you could reframe the question, I might be able to answer. I don't think
Sure.
I understand it completely.
Okay, so at the end of the day, the person that kills Light is Ryuk.
Yes.
It's not the whole machinations and everything that happens in the last few episodes, where Memlo died and then Anne is standing there, and this whole situation that happens when they go to the warehouse and everything, where L completely lost it at that point. I'm sorry, no L. Light completely loses it at this point. Like he's 100% like lost it. I think like in any kind of way, like you can, I don't know, you can definitely see like he's like no longer like as coherent as he was at some point. You can see that either the Death Note or just like the whole situation just has taken like so much out of him, and obviously like he goes to the point that he's like bleeding out, like walking or running, escaping or whatever. So did you think Ryuk did like a favor to him as far as like, okay, you're gonna get caught and you're probably gonna be caught for life kind of thing, or rather just kill you now so I don't have to be bored anymore kind of thing?
Wow, that's a okay. Wow.
So
Yeah, I guess you could say he did him a favor. He would have either spent life. Well, yeah, they was gonna take him to the EMT. He was gonna spend life in prison. Or I mean, they were at the point of killing him. Matsuda was gonna kill him. So, and no one stopped him really. They just let him. It was like he's gonna die anyway. Just let him walk off.
yeah, I don't think they would have let him die. I think that they would have had him like stay alive. Like if you really think about it, like in a show where it's everything about killing, having the bad guy be caught and then just having be alive, that would have been kind of the ultimate kind of like, hi, you for so long you control who lives and dies, and at the end of the day we're
Wow.
not gonna let you die. That was kind of, to me, that would have been like the perfect punishment to him, like in this situation kind of thing, because he would have made it just being like, You know, after everything that happens, you don't get to decide that you die now.
It's definitely possible, and it would have also been plausible. But when you, I guess I'm looking too deep in it to think if they kept him in prison, this dude has fucking lives on his body. Like he's living for a pretty long time. He'd be the oldest dude in the cell.
Oh, that would be crazy, but I don't know. It's an interesting aspect of it. I don't know how it would have turned out in that end. I personally think that Ryuk killed him then because he knew like if he got caught, and he will be attached to somebody who is just in prison for life.
And fucking boring.
He
Yeah,
will be
exactly.
boring
That
as
was it was
hell.
a selfish
Yeah.
decision that
Yeah.
Ryu killed Light, but I
Yeah.
guess it helped him at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think that was like the better outcome for him. Although there is a lot of like speculation as far as like Light being a Shinigami, or like going to the Shinigami world since he can't die.
Familiar with
Or
that. Yeah, they showed. I think
yeah,
it was like some manga somewhere. They showed a little bit of that, what that would be like, or what it was like,
Mm-hmm.
and him like going through the motions of taking on everyone, all the people that he dies, their death over and over. I
Mm-hmm.
think that was a real special. I remember reading that years ago.
yeah. They wrote some books too. I never read the books. There's like two books, or there's a light. There's an L novel which I never
Oh,
read.
L of the World. Yeah, I had that. I didn't get to finish it, but I definitely had it. It was a really good book.
And then there is the one shots, which we can I guess talk about now, unless you have anything you want to mention about the actual show.
Let me see.
Or to draw
Looking over
notes.
these
Maybe you have
notes. I want to
something
make
else.
sure. Okay. Oh, no, I just want to give some praise to how Ryuk frames that Light would be a Shinigami way before he even dies. So it's a lot of scenes where not only does L praise Light for being so smart and being able to replace him and openly states in front of the MPA, like, hey, you would be a perfect L, dude. Like he's baiting him the whole time. Like, would you want to join the MPA if I die? You're shaping up to
Right,
be just
yeah.
like me. So many things that L says to stroke Light's ego because he knows this is what he likes and he expects him to slip up like he did during that tennis match where he was kind of pushed in the corner where if I lose this tennis match, it's showing that I'm trying to throw them off, and if I win, it just shows them that I'm Kira and I'm very egotistical about winning. But this other scene was the opposite of that, where Ryuk is telling Light like, "Yo, dude, you're pretty awesome. You would shape up to be a great ass Shinigami." Like, I love things like that because, once again, Ryuk is just a spectator. But also, it shows that in the Shinigami world, there's some standards for being what you are or whatever it is. They just stroking his whole fucking ego the whole time, and I find it funny because at the end, that cocky laugh, and I'm the best, and I'm the only person that could do it. Like, who else is gonna do it? I'm awesome. Kill me. I don't care. All of that. It just, I love the way from beginning to end that they stroke this dude's ego. I just laughing at it, and I find it funny, but it's also just a masterpiece.
Yeah, there's just so many things that I love about the characters. The character writing is really good because it's to me because it's really constant. There are really few times that I see a character, I'm like, man, this character is really acting out of like a personality and everything. And there's like a real sense of growth, but not like growth in like a good way. Like you can see how the whole cat and mouse fight is kind of like deteriorating their minds of the farther they go, the more mistakes they're making and everything. You can kind of like see like it's like a sense of like decay instead of like growth, I guess, if you want to say it that way. And I really like that a whole lot. But at the end of the day, like there's like all these other supporting characters that are also very well written. Like I like Misa for different reasons, but I feel like she was still like a really interesting character to have. And like having every single character have like their own storyline, I guess, if you want to say it. Not storyline, like mini storylines, I guess. Like Masuda has like his own story. And then Light's dad. And what does it do with the afro? Is that what's his name?
Fuck. What's his name? It's the only dude's name I don't remember.
I don't remember his name either, but he also has this mini storyline about like him like having to drop off the investigation because he needs to take care of his family and he has a
Yeah.
child and everything. Like all these little mini stories didn't need to happen, but like they're there to kind of give you a sense of perspective of the world as far like the, if you will, like the justice and everything. Like there's like so many other stuff like the whole world doesn't revolve around just Light and L's battle. Like there's definitely like everybody else is actually living lives and doing
Fate
stuff
of
and
the
everything.
world. Yeah, all the
Right.
parents, all the children. It's representing just how like detrimental catching Kira is for everyone.
Right, and I feel like that was like even in a sense like it was like so well done because he does gives you perspective and it does ground like it gives like a sense of reality to it. And again with like the rules and everything, it just makes it like more realistic in a sense, I guess, if you want to say it that way. But
I,
yeah,
th- I
yeah, go ahead.
yeah. No, no, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. I have nothing.
Okay, so I wanted to mention because you said in the beginning of this podcast that you don't like. Wait, give me a second. Yeah, you said you didn't like how they included small scenes like the tennis games and all these things. But I think what you have to remember is that they give you. I praised all of these small scenes because they give you the biggest key information during them. Like that one scene
Oh
where
yeah,
they're just drinking
you're right. Yeah.
tea and he's profiling Light the whole time. And then you got the obviously the tennis match where he's
Mhm.
profiling him the whole time. So all of these small scenes they were lended to Light L getting so much useful information.
Oh, of
I don't
course,
know.
yeah.
I'm thinking that these scenes are masterpieces because there's no way that I would even have thought if I played tennis with a dude, I'm getting a lot of good information from it.
Oh,
If I'm
definitely.
drinking tea,
I agree with
yeah.
you. I don't necessarily feel like they're bad. I feel like they're great. It's just like the funny side of it. Like they made them comical at the same time. They're realistic and like it does, like you said, like it does give you like the biggest information. At the same time, they're made them kind of like silly in a sense. That they're like almost like a little bit funny, like the whole chips moment. You know, the moment where he's like writing the names while eating chips and everything like that, and there's like all these cameras looking at him. Like in a sense, like the if you really break down the scene, it is comical as fuck. It is just like I can just imagine like some dude trying to hide a camera in a chips bag while like pretending to do homework or whatever, and then he does and starts all the killing everything. It's just hilarious. It's an interesting scene and it's really well done and it does serve like this purpose of like how much of a genius Light is, and you know, like again, like exposing like the his mentality and everything. Like nothing's gonna stop him from writing names and everything. And he knows that he's being spied on and everything like that. At the same time, you can kind of like see that even though like the scene itself is comical, and it became a meme at some point, it's still like a pretty good scene that kind of like shows a good perspective. And again, I agree with you on like the tennis match and like him going to school. It does feel a little, it felt a little out of place, but when you put it like that, it does kind of like it does more to the story than it does detriment.
Yeah, and even in that small scene, they give a bit of background on Light Yagami while they're playing the tennis match. And I find it weird because Hideki Ryuga at the time, acting as L, he's playing the tennis match and no one's ever seen this dude before. But
Right,
for
yeah.
some reason, they take that moment to focus on Light. This dude comes down and he's like, oh my God, this is the Light Yagami that used to be the tennis champion or something, and he retired. And I'm like, why did they throw that in there? It's not like it has anything to do with whether Light loses in this match or not, but I guess they do that to chalk up why he's good at tennis. But the real question is, why is this Hideki Ryuga guy so good? They just came like yesterday type shit or 4 days ago. So that was a funny scene, but I like the fact that they
Right, right.
snuck this what
I
I
do
would consider
feel,
useless information in
yeah.
there, but it was cool, I guess.
I do feel like maybe a little bit more. I don't know. I feel two ways about this. One, I love the amount of mystery that is around L and like his background because it always gives you this sense of like you don't know what he's capable of. You don't know where he's been. So therefore, like even when they talk about like the top three detectives, it's actually just him, you know, and the other
Yeah.
two are like decoys just in case, you know, something, which is again like a fucking genius move. Like that will be like something that you
What
will
was
do in
the
this.
names? Denev, the con man guy and him or something. Yeah.
Right, and then on the other hand, I also wish that they had probably like elaborated more into like the background, because when M and N kind of just show up, it kind of just feels like a little like loose in that and like a little weird, I guess. I don't know.
Definitely, I agree.
I don't know. I felt like it was almost like they should have hinted something of that, because by the time that they show up, it almost feels like a little bit too forced. Like I don't know. Like to me, I felt like if they had elaborated a little bit earlier, like something like that, even if it's just like a throwaway line, like, oh, the school is doing this, or something like he's doing talking to Watari about or whatever. That would have just
They
gone a long way. uh
they
Sorry.
did something like that, but it wasn't on the level that we wished it was. So they started like episode 22 or 23 showing the orphanage and the kids playing around, and then you see Watsuri come into the orphanage with little L there, and then
Right, yeah.
immediately it flashes to a scene of them grown, and it just shows that relationship and where L comes from, and that follows quickly with M and N. So I don't think the way that they introduced Eminem was good, but I do appreciate that they at least showed a bit of where L comes from and who he has involved himself with when he was a kid.
Right. I do. I don't think it was like, super bad, but I do feel like it would have like helped more as far as like building the other characters and everything. I don't know. It's just so great. Like, so there are so many little things that I almost feel like nitpicking. Like they're like we're just like grabbing this little stuff that, although I mention them, they're not like bad or anything like that. Like none of them for me are like a break or make or break kind of thing. Like none of them will ruin the show for me either way. I just feel like there are some aspects that are like, oh, it would have been nice to see another aspect of like a build up or anything. But at the same time, I also like the mystery and the suspense between like L and where he's from and everything. Because the entire time you're like, oh, well, what is this guy even from? What does he do and everything? It's just like so many aspects that of L that just makes him like so interesting. That
At some point,
yeah.
I didn't mean to cut you off. At some point early, I think he mentions having done work in specific different countries before. And I think in the beginning they highlight that there's American, all the countries are kind of in unison during these meetings, and that he's worked in different places. And I think he highlighted one of his previous, like the one that came right before this Kira investigation. It was like a child abduction case and some other case in this other country. So he talks a little bit about where he's been
Right,
and what
right.
he's done, like information like that he worked with Naomi Misora on one
Oh
specific
yeah,
case
yeah.
when they
Right,
were
right.
younger. Yeah, so he gives little nuggets, but you got to put them together and catch him when he says them because he won't say them again, you know?
Right, and I do appreciate that because again, it does give you like this sense of like mystery to a character, but at the same time, kind of like building up like a character profile for himself or something like that. Either way, I thought it was really really well like executed, like his character and everything. Like at the end when he dies or Watari dies. And he like the one thing that he goes is like goes to press the button to delete everything. I was like, oh, like that's like such a brilliant move. Like even
Yeah.
if he trusted L like Light in like a like how he says he did or whatever, he still didn't really trust him. He rather just delete everything, and that was great. I thought it was a brilliant move.
Let's stay on that topic.
Yeah.
You mentioned it a couple of times too about how L views light and the things that he says. I believe that everything that's come out of L's mouth, despite moments like when he first saw Rem and prior to like, yeah. Point is, I think a lot of the things L said was premeditated to give L and even the viewer some sort of assurance that he's growing closer and he's losing his edge, becoming close with Light. I think L the entire time was never Light's friend, and I think his wording was proof of that. His whole I'm 99% sure or I'm 50% sure. Everything was always to leave a smidge of a percent to show that even though I'm saying these things to make you feel a little like you're losing me, just know that 1% means everything. That 1%, you flip it around, that's 99% of doubt.
Right.
1% is all you need to still think that this man is Kira. And him saying, oh, I finally have a friend. And then that one stupid scene where Misa and Light and Ella just like they're skipping around and they're friends all of a sudden. He's like, oh, friendship, yeah. And after that scene, he even says, oh, I guess I have two friends now. It's awesome that he says these things. It's the whole point is that he's trying to steer them away from his suspicion, try to make them feel a little softer on the inside so that they lose their edge together. I mean,
Right.
this is the first Kira and the second Kira suspects, so he's saying these things on purpose. You got to keep in mind, Light is young. He's in some ways gullible. It all depends on what you say to him, because certain things get to his head and other things just make him drop his guard. And that's the
Right,
whole
yeah.
point, is that L never never really felt attached to these people because he's hyper fixated on the case. He's saying what he has to say. He's doing what he has to do to get in everyone's heads. That's his game.
Yeah.
And at one point he states that verbatim is that that's how I catch my criminals. I understand why they do what they do and how they do what they do.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you there. But he also does hint this kind of link to himself and light. There's this scene in particularly what was like raining. It's like a storm or something, and he's outside right
We
before
can talk
he dies.
about that.
And he's outside and it's storming, and then Light shows up. At that point, Light, he already suspects Light like 100%. That 99% that he had before, like it's 100%. Because at that moment, he's gonna jump in and have like these other criminal right names on the death note to make sure like either that or Misa and Light are the ones, right? That's how he's planting that. And there's this moment that they have together where they're talking and everything, and I do see I do feel from a certain perspective that he does have certain appreciation. I wouldn't really necessarily call it like a friendship, but he does have this appreciation to Light as like a I wouldn't even call it respect, but I do think he like appreciates him in a sense. Does that make sense?
It does, and honestly, I can't debate that. What I will say, and I think that shout out to Mother's Basement because he explained this beautifully. That scene in and of itself was very, very intentional. So the scene of him wiping down Light's foot, everything in the anime, if you notice it, is symbolic. We're talking the openings, we're talking the words in the openings,
definitely.
we're talking
Yeah,
about the God complex, we're talking about imagery. That one scene, perhaps, yeah, he could have actually felt some attachment because that's based on a religious moment, or I don't know the exact names, but basically the premise was he became friends with someone he knew was going to betray him in the future.
Oh
and
yeah,
that was his downfall.
he's talking about that whole scene. I've never seen Mother's Basements, but I'm assuming you mean like the whole Judas and Jesus moment where he's like
so I guess
like cleaning the feet is kind of like wiping out away the sins kind of thing. That's kind of like what it is.
Right.
And I said, I do feel like that's what I meant when I was talking about like that's the moment where he knows 100% this guy is Kira. Like that.
He's
that was
just
like
yeah.
That was like the big kind of like visual cue to me that he was telling him, I know you're the Judas, like I know you're the person that is gonna go on and
fuck it.
Yeah, and I really do like that a lot. I think this was so well created, like that whole scene. Because and the other aspect is that whole scene is played out in the opening, but in the daylight when they're kind of like fighting each other. They're like on top of a tower or whatever, and they're like looking at each other and
the red and the blue, yeah.
Right, and that whole scene like. It almost goes full circle to this moment where it's like it's storming and it's raining. It's no longer sunny and everything. It's just like it's coming down to like a specific point. I really love the way that they played out that scene. Easily one of the best scenes in the show, I think.
Yeah. I'm gonna take a moment. If you hear any like rustling, just know I have this bag for Light, and if you hear anything, just know I'm gonna take a potato chip and eat it. Okay.
No, that's fine. Take your time. I don't mind at all.
All right, but yeah, I mean, a lot of these scenes, since it's based on symbolism, I think if you knew about that beforehand, this would have been like more than a masterpiece, dude. I found these things out once again after 10 years. I looked back into the anime last week and all the media I could find and connecting all the links dude, this show goes crazy. What I did want to say before we moved on to anything like spinoffs and such, there's one last point. So, another place, you know what? Can we talk about all the times that Light could have fucked up? Like, I know we went through a couple, maybe like 3 or 4.
Oh, yeah, sure.
This dude fucked up a lot of times. One of the points that really got me was when Misa and Light came out of confinement.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, actually, no. Not even before they came out of confinement. Before they went into confinement, she goes to, I forgot what the place was, but basically that specific date, she goes to the cafe. We'll show our books in Ayama. That scene. They capture Misa, and he asks
Right.
Once they go through the thing, they get taken out, and he asks Misa, "L, when did you know that you loved Light?" And she's like, "Oh, I knew it from the moment that I saw him." And he's baiting her the whole time, but for some reason he still didn't know everything that she said. He
Right.
said, "Oh, so you met him in Aoyama. You don't know what you were wearing. You don't know how you fell in love with him, but you knew the moment you saw him that you loved him." And she's like, "Yes. Why is it bad that I don't remember this stuff?" And from that moment, he should have known she was the second killer. I think he knew way before, and he just wanted to solve the case. He could have apprehended the both of them, because how do you not remember where you were on the very day that Light found the notebook? Because after that day, she did the broadcast, and she's like, "Oh, I decided to stop searching for Kira," or some bullshit like that.
Right.
So he knew that the killers already made contact, and she's the only person that's like, "Yes, I was in Aoyama that day."
Oh yeah,
But
the whole thing with Misa, it just really just threw everything out of the window for Light. Like the whole reason why he was even caught so fast, I think, is because she made so many mistakes, like from the DNA samples that they found to the fact that she just suddenly approached Light. That made Light so much likelihood of being Kira. That is like, it's not even funny how stupid that is. Like, if you really think about it, like that's like one of the moments that I was kind of like almost annoyed at her. I was like, you gotta be shitting me. Like, if he gets caught because of her, I'm just gonna be kind of annoyed about it. And it does happen. Like, at
that's the
the end
same
of
way
the
he
day,
felt.
yeah.
He's like, "Dude, I have to kill this woman as soon as possible." There's no
Right.
way. Another thing was showing how the point I made earlier about how both Light and Elle are fixated on their own goals. Even Misa had a mission, and she was so involved in her mission to meet Light and be a part of his team that she was willing, like you said, to put her own friend. The thing was, she didn't have her own DNA samples on that stuff. She had a friend who was into the occult stuff with her. She had her package all the tapes. So Light, being the guy that was willing to burn his whole family down for his mission and use Misa at any means, like, she was doing the same thing. She was ready to out her friend and have her friend get caught for this whole fucking thing, just to meet Kira, just to be on his side, just to be noticed. So
Right.
I like how this show not only shows that everyone involved in the show has a personal goal, has their own life, but also it shows that even Misa, like Elle and Light, are lunatic. They all are hyper fixated on something, and they will use anybody to get
Right.
there. L will say anything to get his goal to happen. Light will kill anybody to make it happen. He will manipulate anybody, and even Misa will manipulate anybody to get to her goal,
Right.
which is
Yeah,
crazy.
I agree. I agree with you. She will. There was only so many things that she wouldn't do for Light. I mean, she really sacrificed her own life twice, just
Hmm.
to meet him and later to help him. So yeah, I agree with you. They're definitely interesting characters. There's a lot of layers to them, more than just simply like a specific motivation. There's like all this other stuff that they also happening and everything. But yeah, I agree with you. There's like so many times that it could have gotten caught that you're kind of like, man, this could have happened much earlier. But
Hmm.
yeah, 100%. So I'm running up with everything that I wanted to discuss with Death Note, the original Death Note. Did you have anything else in your notes that you wanted to go over? Unless you want to jump into the one shot.
Give me 1 second. I'm snacking on this chocolate, and I can't lie. I don't eat chocolate like that, but Mello must have been on some good time because this chocolate's good. Let me see my notes. They say it's funny because I think that was the end of the main series notes as well.
Right.
Yeah, pretty much. Wow.
All right, sounds good. So as far as from here on, if you haven't seen the one shot that was released by Bismeria, it's actually free. You can read it online. There will be a link in the podcast description. So if you want to check that out, check it out. So one of the cool
Nope.
aspects of the one shot that I actually really liked is the first thing that they addressed of the beginning of the one shot is technology has improved since then. Like that's one of the aspects that you will almost be like, yeah, if this was in 2021, Light would have gone and caught like way earlier with fucking cameras and everything like that.
Dude,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, and I love that the authors took that in consideration. as far as like actually building something out of it. Like, yeah, we know technology changed. This is gonna play a role in the story, and I love that because I love that they addressed that. It was a much needed point. I think that without it, it would have made kind of like almost like a okay, is this too fantastical? But at the end of the day, like they still kind of like immediately grounded that into it would have not happened the same way,
Yeah.
and it's interesting kind of how they build a world where Death Note happens, and there's like a lot more like focus on that aspect and everything. When the Death Note shows up again, the world literally goes crazy about it, which is insane. Like worlds, we can talk about the. I don't know if you want to give the a small summary of the one shot if you want.
I think it'll kind of explain itself as we go along, but yeah, like we're at a time where Kira is a figure in history. So he's in the textbooks, he's in the learning curriculum. He's kind of like the MLK, Thomas Jefferson, and all these people of our age, which is crazy, dude. We're talking a mass murderer. I guess you could say he's Hitler of their time. And I just find
Right.
that's dope how they not only touch on how recent they like where they are in the age of technology, but also just how important, how big of a name Kira has become to where they learn about him and what he's done.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I really like that as well. So the main character is a kid at the beginning of the show, and I love how Ryuk. I'm sorry, no, I said he, but I mean Ryuk. Ryuk is trying to look for another smart guy. He's like, oh, Light had a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun with Light because he was really smart and he could do all this stuff. So the next person he's looking for is somebody smart. Like he's not looking for just some rando. He's not just dropping the Death Note. He's now specifically finding somebody that is gonna make, have some. He's gonna have some fun with, which I love because it wasn't just about like having fun. Like he actually wanted somebody that was gonna do crazy stuff again, right? I thought that it was an interesting kind of like bit to throw into. At first, you could
Yeah.
kind of like see it like a throwaway, kind of like he just wants to find somebody like light, but no, he really wants to find somebody who's gonna keep him entertained. And I like how the kid he immediately comes up with like a plan, and he's like, okay, get back to me in like 3 years or something like that. I don't know how many years the time skip is. I don't recall. Do you know how long the time skip is?
I think it was really supposed to be just that 2 years.
Okay, and then Ryuk comes back, and then he gives him the Death Note that he remembers. And I really like how the kid is really not interested on like using the Death Note for himself or anything like that. Like he doesn't have any of that crazy I'm gonna be a god moments or anything like that. But he's just like he's trying to get the most out of it by using the
And
Death Note in like a completely different way. And
right
I
before,
yeah, go
my
ahead.
fault.
Go
Before,
ahead.
I'm sorry. Before you move on, let's highlight the fact that Light got his Death Note in his senior year of high school, whereas Minoru, who becomes a kid, got his Death Note while he was in middle school.
Right, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's kind of it's a little different, and I guess he popped up during his freshman year, so it's a different mindset, different world that he's living in. So yeah, just keep that in mind.
Oh no, no, definitely. But what I mean is like he also utilizes like the knowledge of like Akira already happened and everything. So using the Dead Note will also be kind of like pretty stupid too. Like like you're gonna get caught You're more likely to get caught now with a Dead Note than before.
Oh yeah,
Like the world that we live in is or the world that they live in is a world where the Dead Note changed their lives forever, right? So like they even from that perspective, you can think of like, dude immediately came up with a plan not to use the Death Note but still take advantage of it, like doing that whole auction and everything. So he gets a Death Note and he puts it for auction in the internet, and the world just goes insane. And I think that's one of the more interesting parts, like how much like it not only did it impacted like Japan or like the world in Death Note, like you even see like the United States playing a major role in it, which is actually pretty funny. And all these other aspects, I thought it was like interesting. Like again, he's trying to use the Dead Note in like a different way, just trying to get cash out of it, I guess. But all this stuff that all the ways that he comes up with to kind of get away with it and get the money out of it or whatever, I thought it was pretty good. I don't know.
right.
Yeah, what do you have there?
I think why I mentioned his age was because not only are the times that he's living in different, but it also shows that his priorities are probably more in line with his family and the people that are around him. And immediately, that's exactly what happens. He thinks less of himself. And yes, he does have the prior knowledge of the massacres that the previous kid committed. But also just him being young and living in this pretty like free advanced world, and he's at that age where family is a core part, or just the world around him is more important than himself. It completely showed that he had more heart than Light just by looking at their ages
Oh yeah,
at the times that they
definitely.
exist in. So I think it was less about being caught because the last killer got caught and committing all these things, but more or less at his age, his life is a bit different and his priorities are very different
Oh yeah,
than high
they're
school
definitely very
2007 Light Yagami.
really different kind of characters. You can definitely see. Although I don't know if I will argue that the Death Note really changed Light, because whenever Light loses his memories, his sense of justice is pretty much the same as his dad's, which is really interesting. Like how different Kira and Light are, like as characters. Whenever they're talking about like, oh no, Ryuzaki, don't do this because this is bad and it's gonna, like, this is just not good or whatever, and he's not acting because he doesn't have the knowledge of Kira at that
Right.
point. So I don't know if necessarily, I don't know if you will say that the Death Note changes the person as much as the person with power changes. So I don't really, I don't want to claim that the Death Note changed him as much as the having that power, sense of power within the Death Note changed the person that he was. I don't know. I don't know. It will be a
Yeah.
debatable kind of thing because I don't think I'm not Lisa. Misa changed from using the Death Note. Like I don't. We didn't know her before the Death Note, but seeing how she acted when she didn't have the Death Note and when she did, she's pretty much the same kind of person. And seeing how much light changes, I don't necessarily think that the Death Note itself changed him as much as like the possibilities and the power within the Death Note kind of allow him for more. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Right. It does. It definitely does. And I'll tell you what also makes sense. Briefly, I'll go back to the original show. From the beginning of the show, they highlight his perspective on violence and the crimes that have been growing in the world. And this is where I began to understand Light as a like. He's my favorite character just for how he views the world. It's actually similar to mine. And he's sitting in class and he feels powerless because he has to watch all of these things going on. He's watching a kid get bullied for his lunch money, and he noticed this that it happens every day. You see people on the street doing things. He's looking at TV. There's crimes everywhere, and he's expressing his disgust with it. But also, I think that when he got the Death Note, what happened was prior to the Death Note, he could have believed in reformation for small criminals and small crimes. When he got the Death Note, he started to believe in absolutes because he realized there was no one that could stop him. So
Right.
you're right. He has the same ideology that bad people deserve to have consequences, but also there's that split between someone can get better, maybe younger like Yagami, well, pre-Death Note like Yagami believed in reformation. We're talking programs, we're talking therapies and jail time. And then like Yagami with the Death Note, it's like, why the fuck should reformation even exist? It's either you do good or you do bad. That's the
Right.
only difference, but you're right. He does have the same ideology as his father once the Death Note's taken away.
Yeah, but moving back into we bounced back to Death Note, but Death Note 2.0. I don't know what it's called. I don't really know what the thing is
I
called.
don't know if they named it. I just call it Akira. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it's called, but I really liked it a whole lot. The not only having like this whole aspect as far as like the way that he acts and the way that he does things, the main character, but also like the story isn't intended to go farther, and I was really curious to see what they were gonna do with this. Whenever I started reading, I was like, this like I reached to about
Likewise.
page 40 and I'm like, how is this gonna end? Like, I don't know if they have enough time to finish everything. I was super worried they were gonna leave us in like some kind of weird cliffhanger or something like that, and we'll just kind of wait for like maybe a second part or something. I don't know. I was super worried about it, and then when you get to the end of it, you're like, oh, like there's a beginning, a middle, of the end to the story. There isn't like the pacing is well done. It's really few times where I read a good one shot. I read a lot of them, and some of them just like they lack as far as like storytelling perspective, because it's typically one shots are made as a teaser for a future project. There's a lot of one shots that they
Yeah, that's
do.
true.
In fact, Shonen Jump does tournaments, not tournaments, I guess competitions with a lot of mangaka, so they can write one shots for the next story. For example, One Piece, Naruto, Bleach. They all started as a one shot. They all have like a one chapter storyline, kind of as a teaser to what the story will be about. And typically they have like a random story, intro some characters, you kind of get an idea. But the one shot for this Death Note is really just like a continuation to the story, but it does feel like a complete story. It is short. It is only like 80 pages long or something like that. But within those 80 pages, you have a whole story, and I love that so much. It's not just like all this other stuff. It's really well done.
Are you ready to tear it down? Or
No,
no?
we're ready to tear it down. Yeah, go ahead.
It's not going to start too crazy, but going back to what I said about how the rules have played a part in even the one shots. So, I don't know if you read the review or even saw the last parts of it, but I was dissatisfied with how it ended. I don't think we mentioned how it ended yet, so I'll take it away if you're okay with that.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So, long story short, yes, they involve world powers. We got the U.S., we've got other countries. They all have their eyes on a Death Note, primarily because Akira decides not to use the note. He takes advantage of advanced technology and goes online and basically tries to sell it. Makes a big post and wants to sell it to a world power. We're talking big bucks, big money, and big power. He manages to I guess get the transaction through. Well, he doesn't. Basically, USA is like, yo, we want the book. Trump is like, yo, we want the book. And he gives them a week. Trump gets the book because he bids the highest amount. That's how things went. Then the rule that's in question here is that a Shinigami does not have to tell you the rules of the note or how it works. So the biggest plot twist in this one shot is that he's not even using the note to kill, but somehow, some way, the Shinigami King finds out that he's planning to sell the note, and because he's not using it as it was intended, he creates a new rule. He's the god of Shinigami. He can do that. The new rule states that if you sell the book, you will fucking die. And flashback to before Akira Minoru told Ryuk to come back in a couple of years, he had a issue with Ryuk even existing in the first place. He was disgusted by his presence and the ability to kill, and he told him, oh no, this is after he relinquishes. Oh no.
He
Okay.
first relinquishes, and then he remembers everything.
Right. So yeah. So he gets the Death Note back. While he's selling the Death Note, he finds, America bids the highest, Trump bids the highest, and while he gives Ryuk the Death Note to send in transit, Ryuk is intervened by the Shinigami King, where he tells Ryuk, yo, while you're sending this off, add this rule that if you sell it, you die. We're talking after the bid was already over and the Death Note is in transit.
Right.
Going back to the rule, that the new rule gets added and Ryuk comes back down. Once again, flashback to right before Ryuk left Minoru to give the Death Note to Trump. He tells Minoru, disgusted with this power, tells Ryuk, yo, once this shit gets out of my possession, bro, don't even bother to come back. That was the first issue. And Ryuk is like, you know what? Okay, I won't come back. He goes to send the book over. We have this new rule that if the book gets sold, you will die. He already sold this transaction ended. Well, it didn't physically end, but he sold the book and it was already in transit. Ryuk couldn't come back. One, because Minoru told him not to come back ever.
Right.
Two, because the Shinigami does not have to even explain. This is a rule, so this qualifies as a rule that exists for any future Death Note holders. Ryuk didn't come back because the rule states that he didn't have to. But in two ways, he didn't have to come back because the kid told him not to come back anyway. But still, Death Note, that's fucked up. Like, I just have a problem with that because in the end, because he made the transaction and followed through with it, he fucking, like, he dies because that rule exists. But it existed in the middle of a transaction where he basically cornered himself to not get the information of the no rule. I got mad at that because when I watched the original show last week and it said, yo, Shinigami don't have to tell you shit. I'm like, so that's how you're going to do, my boy? Like, that's really, you know what I'm saying? I felt like, damn, that's kind of fucked up, bro.
Yeah, I guess it's fucked up, but it also kind of like, you will have to read their rules and everything. But then again, they made up a new rule half the way through the story when a lot of things have already happened. I don't know. I see where you're coming from. It does bother me too that they kind of just made a new rule in the middle of it. kind of thing, because I guess nobody really thought of this kind of situation. I honestly thought he was gonna take advantage of technology to create like like think about it like that. Like if you developed an AI that
We should.
like think about it like that. If you develop an AI that works the Death Note within the rules, and they're just randomly killing bad guys, they have access
Oh,
to the internet with faces and everything. Will
oh
the
my God.
and the AI is just writing names. You can print them. I'm assuming you can print stuff, and you can just feed it to a printer. Would you die in this situation? You're technically not writing anybody down. You're having just the AI write the names through it.
I'll tell you this. That wouldn't work because it's basically within embedded in the Death Note that a human has to touch it.
I mean,
So
you are touching the
without
Death
any
Note, right?
attachment, it would belong to Ryuk. And I guess that way, if it killed, it wouldn't affect anybody. But Ryuk, it would be Ryuk's book, no one else's. And
Well,
I don't
does
think
he have to be a
someone would
human to
die
write
unless the
in it?
human touches it and uses it. Because there's one book that's primarily made for humans to use, and one book that Shinigami used. And if a human doesn't touch the human book, then nothing really happens. The
No, no,
book doesn't
no.
have any magical powers.
The Death Note are all made for Shinigamis. They're not
Right, but
human
they
Death
have they
Notes.
have two. There's one that only Shinigami can use, and one that only humans
Oh
can
no, no,
use.
no. The Death Note itself comes from the Shinigami. The reason why Ryuk has to is because he tricked the king of the
They
Shinigami.
get an extra one, yeah.
Yeah, and then Rem has to because Jealous died.
Jealous.
But
Yeah.
they're all Death Note from the Shinigami. What I'm thinking of is like, does the user have to have a lifespan?
Well, I don't. Uh, I don't think it could be a machine. That's definitely a conversation to have in the future.
I was
But
like, I
I
don't know,
don't
like,
think so because I think it's about skin to skin contact. Like because there one scene in Death Note where they did get up in the forest and Light has Ram and Ryuk basically touch the Death Note each. They put it in a circle so that it can go back to him. That just showed that a human needed to like you literally needed a human to touch the book for any transaction of the book to occur, any transaction of the power for it to take effect in the human world and all that. Like Ryu couldn't kill Light maybe from all the way in the Shinigami realm. I think all of this Death Note shit had to exist after someone touched it. So basically, you're saying if the Death Note came down and he didn't make any contact with it, but he had a machine do the work.
no, no, no. I mean, you certainly have to use you have to have contact to it to
I think
even
that's
get it
yeah.
right. So you get the Death Note, right? You write the notes, and the note says the human who uses this Death Note
I'll
cannot go to
die.
neither heaven or hell. So you have the
Right.
Death Note, but you're not using it. Just like when what's his face when L had the Death Note, he could speak to the Shinigami, but he wasn't actively killing anybody with it. So then you rip out some pages, put them in your printer, and they have an AI type names into it, and then print them out. You're holding the Death Note still.
Yeah, I guess you are the owner at that point.
Yeah, you're still the owner of the Death Note. You're holding it, and you have the conversation with the Shinigami, but you're just not
Yo,
writing the names on that. And you know somebody else can kill with your Death Note because it happens in the show.
that's low key genius. Yeah, I mean that. I mean, yeah, in 2007, obviously there wasn't AI, but not on that
2021, like
level.
that. 2021 is possible to have an AI that can do
Definitely.
that.
Yeah, I mean, and then it's machine learning now, so they could just take names off the site. And even back in 2007, they had forums where people were like putting their names up there, like, "Oh, kill this person, kill that person." And even in the Sea Kiddo one shot, you had people literally saying, "Kill me." So in
Right.
2021, most or 2020, most definitely, there would have been a lot of information available online, and the machine just grabs it up, writes it down, and boom, they're dead. Wow. You see what I'm saying, bro? They had an extensive plot that they could have borrowed from, but for some reason they wanted the kid to die in the middle of a transaction.
Right. I was like, okay, fine, whatever. But I don't know. I thought it was gonna go in that direction. Like that's like low key the way that I thought it was gonna happen. Obviously, it doesn't happen. We know. the way that
Hey,
it
I don't blame
ends.
you for having expectations.
But I had some heavy expectations, especially from the first few chapter I'm sorry, the first few chapter, the first few pages where Ryuk is basically looking for the next light. Like he's looking for the smartest dude that he can find that's gonna have him. He's gonna have some fun with him. That's what I
Yes.
expected. But I was like, oh man, the new guy is gonna come up with some crazy way to kill people, and I was like, oh, okay.
And you see, you said, oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm still not disappointed about it. Like I still enjoyed the one shot. I thought it was still pretty good, and it does kind of it's like a good successor to the series. I guess it just felt a little bit more on like the weird, unfair side. I guess if you want to say, I thought it was pretty fucking unfair in some aspects. Like you said, with the writing the note, the rules in the middle of the.
Yeah, that was pretty criminal right there. I didn't fuck with that at all. But what I will say is that jumping off the topic of Ryuk having to find someone as smart as Light, he definitely found someone that was smarter. And it shows when you have Nier, who is truly the successor of L at that point. It shows that Nier is not only smarter, but he's more he's more accepting of having other people help him and having a team and knowing that he needs as much help as he can get. I think they set it up to show that Minoru was smarter than Light, but also Nier was smarter than L. And in this Death Note, Nier has a fucking issue trying to find this kid. Like,
Right.
we're talking more of an issue than L had trying to find Light. So
Oh, yeah.
to kill off a character that had way more potential than Light, he was smarter than Light, he moved a little swifter than Light. Like it's crazy how much they could have done with him being smarter than Light and younger than Light.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, there was but I also feel like you said he was just way smarter. Like the way that he came up with some stuff it was like, oh, like he's using the Death Note, although he's not actually using the Death Note in like a much different kind of way. Like if you really think about
Right.
it, it's like
He's talking numbers and calculations.
right, exactly. Like it's way different from everybody else, from the whole L light situation and everything. But it's still really kind of like fun to kind of see like the way that they came up with everything. I was like, yeah, I still dig with it. I still like it.
Right. Yeah. Let me see. I had one. What was it? It was just on the tip of my tongue. I was holding on to it too. Give me 1 second. Yeah. So what I was saying was, he's coming up with numbers. We're talking ages, big statements, money account numbers, how people will trace them, and this dude was on a whole different level.
Oh
And
yeah,
Nier himself,
definitely.
out
Yeah,
of his mouth, said, "Hey man, I can't catch this kid. He's a little too much. Like I'm having issues." Even L didn't admit defeat as much as he wanted. Like he probably did it one time.
yeah,
And you have Nier over here, and this kid is like, if he was in middle school, I'm assuming he was like 12, 13. 2 years later, he's about 15. You're getting stumped by a 15-year-old kid who's just using the internet. Like,
Yeah.
ain't that crazy? And he didn't have a Misa. He didn't have anybody working with him.
Well, yeah,
And
and he just came
Yeah.
up with a plan within like
within a
hours
week.
again. Yeah, because like think about it this way: the first time he said he was gonna come up with something fun for Ryuk, and then he says, "Bring me the Death Note 2 years later or whatever," and then he goes and
He
comes
didn't
back.
remember that. He didn't use that 2 years to plan because he didn't have any memory.
No. I didn't say he had 2 years. I'm saying that he came up with I guess some kind of plan or some kind of way to stall until later. I don't know how long he had to come up with the plan, but I don't think he had a long time. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that he had like months. I'm saying that he had like a really small amount of time to kind of come up with it. Because this
seriously.
one shot doesn't pass. It's not like Light. Because Light's story happens through years. I think he's like a fully grown adult by the end of the series. Opposed to again this kid who it must happen within like a few weeks. Like the whole story is within a few weeks at the most.
He basically had puberty during the damn one shot.
Right.
It's ridiculous, man.
Yeah,
That kid was smart.
he's ridiculous. It's also really fun. I just love like I love reading smart characters that have like they come up with like these really crazy stories and everything. It's such a fun way to like I don't know. I enjoy that. Whenever I see like a smart character, like I always kind of enjoy the experience of kind of like seeing this character come up with fun stuff.
It was funny to see everyone's reaction to Trump existing, like the way they took jabs at our president, and really it showed his, because I don't know if they intentionally meant to show how he is. Like, he is a guy that wants all the power, and it's funny that he made the highest bid, or maybe that was attributing to the fact that they owe us that, and we are the biggest country. I don't know which it was, but I found it a little humorous that
Oh,
Trump of all people is like, dude, I want the power to kill people.
I thought it was hilarious. I thought it was not only hilarious but also like really well fitting. I thought I was telling somebody on a podcast that if they ever make like if they ever make a version of this game of this into like an animated like an OVA or something, I want Trump to voice act himself.
Please,
Like I want
please.
him to voice act himself. Like I don't know if we can do this or not, but I want him to go and like have his own voice acting. That would be fucking genius. I would love that so much.
You're fucking
maybe
telling me, man.
maybe someday, but like I would love that. Like that would be so fucking perfect. I don't know if he would be willing to. He probably would. Wasn't he in like some TV show before or something like that?
He was in like a movie or two. I
Yeah.
don't know about a TV show, but I know he was in like Home Alone and stuff like that. So he's played parts in a couple of
Like
blockbusters.
imagine they're like, yo, would you voice act a character based on you?
I think he scoffed at what it represents, but I don't know. He's like, that's not me at all. Some funny shit.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but I will pay.
But
I
it
will
was
pay
super
money for
funny.
that.
It was like a historical deep dive into not only Japan's debt and the state of the world out there, I guess, in 2020, because they were saying like the amount of old people was at an all-time high. Like, we're talking actual facts. If you look this stuff online, it still exists today. So you got Trump being represented, but as he is, you know, a guy that wants all the power, he wants all the control. U.S. being a big, strong, leading power with all the money. You're talking about Japan's GDP and what they owe us. And then
Hmm.
you're also talking about how there's a lot more elders today because there's less children being made. And so, once again, being Minoru's age, he's prioritizing all these things. He's prioritizing the old people and the people that can't support themselves. And the way I looked at it was that the way, because the biggest plot point was that instead of using the Death Note, you know, he sold the Death Note and split that money up between everybody that had Yotsuba bank accounts, and we had old people getting money as well, which was his primary targets, I believe, between like 40 and 60, or 30 and 60,
Hmm.
something around that range. I found that dope because, like I said, you know, there's a lot more old people that can't support themselves, but also because I just he looked into the small things and he cared more about helping those around him rather than helping himself. I don't think he got anything of that, but he helped a lot of people solidify their future. Even the homeless people potentially could have gotten money if they just got a bank account. Because when he aired online that this was happening, mad people ran in to get bank accounts.
Right. Yeah.
Like we're talking, they was flooding the banks. Everything about that was beautiful, man. Because I'm thinking about the old people that can't support themselves. I'm thinking about the homeless people. And it's just like, that was so kind-hearted of him.
Oh yeah.
Once
The,
again,
the
why
kid
does a
is
kid like that have to
definitely
die?
a good contrast between Light and himself. They're like so completely different kind of characters, which I really like that
Right.
they didn't make just Kira 2.0 at the same time. Like I mentioned earlier, like my plan if I were to do something like that, but at the same time I'm like I really love how they came up with the idea of kind of like just being so um so different from each other. Like it really just gives like a different perspective. I think like having such a different character.
Yeah, and I'm really not used to shows representing actual countries. We could talk about the one shot, but also remember in the original show, there was this one scene where Weddy and Iver are going to infiltrate and catch Higuchi as he comes into the broadcast at Yoshida, not Yoshida, the broadcast that they have on TV. It's like, oh, I'm gonna out who the kid is, blah blah blah
Hmm.
blah. When he came in and found Masuda's little doll thing, that scene where Weddy and the conman Ibor have to basically shoot at this dude. The Seiichiro Yagami is like, dude, Weddy passes him a gun and she's like, dude, you have to use a gun because I'm the only one armed right now. He's like, I can't do that. Civilians are not supposed to carry weapons,
Right.
and you shouldn't have one too. I fucking love those, bro, because in the one shot they're talking about the GDP, they're talking about the high rate of old people and less childbirth and how they need money, everything that they owe us, and in the 2007 they're talking about how civilians can't even use guns, bro. What animes do that?
No, that's true. That's true. There's definitely like I mentioned before, like there's so much like grounded into like actual reality, like like when they use numbers and everything, it does build up a more realistic like outlook of, even though again it's a magical note that you can write names on them and people die, but besides that there's like so much realism and like moments where you kind of see like what you were saying, like it falls into this sense of like, oh, I can buy into this idea more than anything else, I think.
Yeah, I learned a fucking lot from this show. I'm not even gonna lie. Like actual Japan information, I learned from this show.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I knew about the gun thing actually. So when they said it, I was like, yeah, that's right. Then like it's cool that they added that into it because it does kind of feel, build this other. Even if it's not like an important aspect, it does bring something to think about.
Right. Yeah, and it's in some way going back to the topic of the GDP. They mentioned how Trump bought the Death Note for about $10 trillion, and they were like, "Oh my God, that's like the amount of money that Japan owes the United States or something like that." So even in moments like those, it shows like literally Japan owes the U.S. so much fucking money. And in a way, if you think a little deeper into it, him splitting that money between all these people will continue to, because Japan is dealing with that economic crisis, and they're trying to make people work more. They're trying to make women work more because they have such a high GDP. They owe us so much money. They're trying to make everybody work. So him splitting that money for the deal of the Death Note and giving it to people is now hopefully stimulating the economy a little bit more, which will then lessen the amount of money they owe to us. So it's really fucking. I don't even think they thought that far, but I connect the dots. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
And I find
definitely.
it just super cool, bro.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's definitely really cool.
Yeah. Let me see. Yeah, that's really all
Yeah,
I felt
I
about
was
the
gonna
Death
say,
Note.
yeah,
Only-
that's all I got as far as the Dead Note and everything. It was a great discussion. I actually had a lot of fun kind of talking about all of these. I think that it's a masterpiece. It's one of my favorite shows. I really really love everything about it. And although we can nitpick it and everything, at the end of the day, like I still love so much about it that it's just like it's my definitely like my number one on my top 10.
Mhm. Yeah. What I will recommend after, I'm probably gonna take a look at it if I have time. That one, I don't even know if it was real, but it was like a one shot, like a manga special, and they showed Light after his death, with basically in limbo in the Shinigami realm, and he's legit going through the motions of every single fucking death. Like he's feeling the pain of the people that got ran over by cars. He's feeling the pain of those that hung themselves. Like he's screaming, shrieking in pain, feeling thousands of people's deaths over and over and over. It's disturbing, but it's beautiful because it really shows you what Ryuk said in the very beginning of the show, is that you
Right.
will feel pain for eternity.
Yeah, definitely.
And
I'll
yeah,
look into it. I'll need to check that out. I never seen that or heard about it, but I'll check it out.
yeah. But hey, top show of all time. What did I say? It'd be fun dissecting this and everything
Definitely,
that we
yeah.
talked about, bro. Like I don't watch anime anymore. I told you that, but I feel like even if I did, nothing would top the way that they present the themes in the show.
100%. I totally agree with you. All right. Well, thank you
Yeah,
so
man.
much for coming by. It was cool to have you here. I definitely had a ton of fun just with you, kind of like talking through it and everything. Hoping that a lot of people also enjoyed this continuation, this discussion and everything. It's just a cool discussion to have. I think I love talking about anime. Like, although my channel is not anime centric or anything like that, I still like I loved having discussions and everything. And it was, I think, one of the perfect anime to kind of kick off the podcast and everything. So again, thank you so much, Chen, for coming by. It was cool to have you here. If you guys check his channel out, he has to start a new channel again. So check his content. There'll be a link in the description. If you guys want to subscribe and check out his stuff, that'll be fantastic. Anything else you want to say before you?
I want to say thank you for the plug. I appreciate that. Also, I had one question for you before we close out.
Yeah.
Kyoto, do you know gods of death who love red apples have red hands?
All right, and with that, thank you so much, guys. Man. I'll see you guys in the next video.
All right, for sure. Have a good one, guys.